This is it. We're finally here at the end of reviewing Doctor Who Series 6. It's been quite a slog, but at last it's done. Everything has been riding on this episode, seemingly in an attempt to rush the Doctor and River into getting married, and then what? Make more TARDIS babies? Settle down in a cottage? I highly doubt it. All the opinions and analysis of this highly anticipated finale will come after a quick word from this video's sponsor. Atlas VPN is a piece of software that encrypts your data and hides your virtual location. This means you can browse the internet as though you were in another country. But why would you want to do that, Harry, I hear you ask? Well, you might already know certain countries in the world prevent the use of Google and certain social media platforms. There are also websites like BBC iPlayer that are exclusively available in the UK. Both of these scenarios are circumvented by having a VPN. You can Google search in China with a click of a button and watch iPlayer in the Canary Islands the same way. Atlas VPN works on Windows, Android, iOS and macOS. They are currently running a 3-year deal that comes to just £1.04 a month. And if you don't like it for whatever reason, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. For access to region-locked films, TV shows and websites, take advantage of this offer today by clicking my affiliate link down in the description below. Thank you to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. Ads like this help support what I do. Now, without further ado, let's get on with the review. This episode has the final prequel of the series, which is literally just a really shite jump scare with that super gross rhyme placed underneath it. It does build up hype for the episode because seeing River with an eye patch makes you wonder if she's reverted back to being a psychopath. Moving on to the main event, this opening is absolutely crazy. Flying cars, Charles Dickens, it was like the Rift had opened in the middle of London. It was hilarious seeing these pterodactyls as well, probably ripped straight from Walking with Dinosaurs, making the same screeching sounds as the Reapers from Series 1. Actually, this scenario plays out quite similarly to Father's Day. River no likey Doctor dying, birds come along and eat the children. Even seeing that lizard guy treating Churchill was super confusing, and yet I loved it all the same. Unfortunately, it was a little too reminiscent of the opening to The Big Bang, where young Amy was seen in a reality where there were no stars. Even the roles of spouses forgetting each other's existences appears in this episode. This time it's vice versa.
That's him, isn't it? I've no idea.
No.
Once again, these realities are so temporary thanks to the reset button solution of these stories that they hold little significance in my mind, flashy and interesting though they may be. So the tale of why this reality came into being is explained in flashback format, where the Doctor chats with a broken Dalek at a very non-specific point in time. I honestly believe they could have done without this scene because it's so bloody similar to the bit with Rory and the Cybermen half a series earlier and proves to be utterly pointless. This rather Western-inspired throwing down the eye stalk moment could have been great without all this pointless dialogue. The Doctor reunites with the Tesselector to put this idea in our heads that they will play a part in this story.
Hello again. The Tesselector time-travelling, shape-changing robot powered by miniaturized people. This unit can disguise itself as anyone in the universe.
Thank you, Moffat, for not only passing on information we already know, but also thank you for reaffirming that you weren't quite sure this would be a popular choice for a returning character, entity, thing.
Never get bored of that.
We then jump to live chess.
Crowd are getting restless. They know the Queen is your only legal move. Except you've already moved it 12 times, which means there are now over 4 million volts running through it.
That's totally barbaric. That's wizard's chess.
Christ, this all felt so bland and rushed as well. Unsurprising really, given that Moffat called chess one of the most boring games in the world. I mean, who the fuck even is this guy? I'll tell you who it is. It's Mark bloody Gatiss. At least the Tesselector had actually made an appearance in the show before, but the Doctor repeatedly talking down his enemies to get the information he needs is just plain boring. This character who plays a game that results in death for the loser suddenly became afraid of death.
I work for the silence. They would kill me.
And then we're in another location with this character doing a load of talking purely for the audience.
7th transept, where the headless monks keep the leftovers. Watch your step, there are traps everywhere.
You would think this information would be delivered to the Doctor at some point before they entered the crypt. It just removes any and all mystery about this location, as though the jittering skulls weren't enough to build an atmosphere. You'd think the master of scary Doctor Who storytelling would understand this concept of the unknown being a scary thing, but the bombardment of information about what exactly is happening simply isn't needed.
The headless monks behead you alive. Remember?
Suddenly this guy got the rug pulled out from under him and died in this poorly aged skull orgy thing happening beneath him. This was all rather hilarious to me because not only was he the one who warned the Doctor about the traps, but the fact it only decided to activate at the peak of dramatic tension had me howling with laughter. This segment in the crypt being a rather obvious homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark made me realise how pointless all the setups from earlier were. Indiana Jones didn't need a bunch of scenes of him researching the golden skull thingy. The film just starts with him entering the tomb careful and capable. The blue head then told the Doctor basically everything we already knew, with an extension to the Doctor's prophecy. More teasing, more reminding. There's not really been much substance to the flashback thus far. The Doctor then took the blue man's head, avoiding all the traps that he missed on the way in, and returned to the TARDIS. All of this guy's Wi-Fi jokes were just plain cringe. Why the fuck would people still be hooked on Wi-Fi in the 51st century?
I got a media chip fitted in my head years ago, and the Wi-Fi down here is excellent, so I keep myself entertained.
Have you got Wi-Fi here? I'm bored already.
To think that sooner or later as well, I'll be reviewing that episode where the Wi-Fi is the monster. So just like in Closing Time, the Doctor's still putting off the scary event he's supposed to be facing in this episode. The Doctor then hears of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart's death following the passing of actor Nicholas Courtney.
Hello, it's me. Get him. Tell him we're going out and it's all on me except for the money and the driving.
Yeah, because you put all your dollar into that fancy house and car in Colchester, didn't you? I truly didn't realise the significance of this character until doing some research and found that he had been in not one, but 23 serials spanning from 1968 right up until the series ended in 1989. He even appeared in the Sarah Jane Adventures whilst that was still a thing. Apparently the eye patches are in fact a nod to his character, him being alternatively represented wearing an eye patch in the serial Inferno. It would have been remiss of the showrunners not to acknowledge the passing of an actor who contributed so much to the show, and it does make for a great final nail in the coffin, for the story itself, with the Doctor resolving to stop running and actually face his fear. The episode then forcefully replayed events in The Impossible Astronaut, which was quite weak sauce.
Riversong came twice.
I bet she did, you old dog. To make things a little more awkward, they refilmed a bunch of it as well, and suddenly it didn't look as natural as before. I felt almost cheated that what previously provided such an emotionally crushing blow was just changed into a different outcome entirely. The dialogue shared between the pair didn't really add anything except for the change that River decided to,
drain my weapon systems.
Not for a reason that would have been built up over the course of the series, but because River suddenly wasn't being controlled by the suit.
I can't stop it. The suit's in control. Hello, sweetie.
Winston and the Doctor find that they're fighting the silence, only for Amy to come in with a bunch of soldiers and kidnap the Doctor. There's a weird scene on some train thing where I'm not entirely certain whether this Amy actually travelled with the Doctor or not. She obviously remembers the adventure she had,
I've missed you!
but not the moral lessons she would naturally develop as a result. Initially, I was quite happy with these moments, thinking they were badass and consistent with her being an alternate Amy. Considering she has such attachment and fond memories of the Doctor in this scene though, there's a muddling ambiguity as to whether or not her being a murderer is justified or not. She has a little bit of regret when the adventure's over and done with, but it just seemed like one of those things that got shrugged off because it didn't really happen.
You and me, we should get a drink sometime.
Okay.
I'm married.
Fine. This was a pretty great set of lines, though. It was rather irritating how strangely in the protagonist's favour this scenario was. River just used her hallucinogenic lipstick to get everything she wanted again, and it turns out that it was love that overrode the spacesuit.
Because I refused to kill the man I love.
I honestly can't find another reason why the suit suddenly stopped being controlled at the moment when it mattered most. Love just has this astonishing power in these two final episodes, doesn't it? I mean, it was a nice thought, but for me, it doesn't make terrifically satisfying fiction. It was nice to find out that these eye patches kept you from forgetting the silence, but the gang's acquirement of them seemed to be swept conveniently under the rug. The same can be said of their acquirement of Madame Kavarian and the silence, only to have them burst out of their cells when the plot required it. I know that this bubble reality doesn't exactly make sense, but it seemed to once again act as an excuse for permitting any and all ridiculous plot contrivances to go unchecked. They then explain that the silence have human servants. It seemed like a waste of potential to find that she was nothing more than a puppet to these monsters without any motivations or goals of her own. In fact, I genuinely believed she was in charge of these creatures. The long-awaited action sequence then got underway with the silence zapping disposable soldiers left and right. Suddenly they were also able to kill people thanks to the eye patches they were all wearing. Again, an idea that might have had more potential had they not introduced it so late in the series. So Amy kills Madame Kavarian in cold blood, and everyone ends up on top of the pyramid. Apparently River had remembered absolutely everything to do with the Doctor, unlike Rory, and had sent out a distress signal to literally everyone who ever has been or will be. I mean, sure, she was conceived inside the TARDIS and that allows her to do weird and wonderful things like this. Oddly, I did really like River's dialogue here in this scene. How she defended the Doctor alongside millions of other voices, apparently taking the form of solar flares or something. He's been told by so many that the universe would be better off without him without really knowing why. It's clearly made him believe the narrative himself. Even a Time Lord is apparently capable of self-loathing, and I thought this was quite interesting to have River heal this inner rage of his with love.
I can't let you die without knowing you are loved by so many and so much, and by no one more than me.
The pair then got married by some tradition I don't quite understand, but I think that ultimately it was quite interesting that this was in fact a big misdirection, given that he didn't in fact give River his name here. It does make me wonder when exactly this will happen, because obviously by the time the library episodes come along, she whispers something in the Doctor's ear, and I highly doubt she whispers,
Look into my eyes, look into the eyes.
We then see River visiting Amy after the whole Flesh and Stone story. This was quite interesting to me, considering she's probably received that pardon she mentioned and is now free. There was something quite relatable about this scene to me personally. Catching up with some alcohol after leaving the nest and being apart for some time is something I myself cherish, and there's clearly that same feeling shared between the two here, despite the age difference. This twist that the Doctor was a Tesselector all along was admittedly rather good. It did make me wonder why he didn't just save some time and make her look into his eye on the beach in Utah, but for once I felt that the I Am the Doctor music actually made me smile instead of irritate me.
So you're going to do this? Let them all think you're dead?
It's the only way, then they can all forget me. I got too big, Dorian, too noisy. Time to step back into the shadows.
I mean, that's a fair point. The Doctor returning to the Batcave to become the hero everyone deserves, not the hero everybody needs, makes for an exciting prospect. Finally, of course,
Doctor Who? Doctor Who? Doctor Who?
finding out who exactly this guy is, specifically his name. It's a tiny, insignificant thing, but still would make for an interesting tale to come in Series 7, especially when you consider they'll be introducing John Hurt as an additional Doctor to finally put the whole Time War thing to rest. I feel like his name will never truly be revealed for the sake of the show's title, but hopefully they'll be able to tie the name into a story about his identity or his past that makes all this teasing worthwhile. So, did it suck? Well, yes and no. There's plenty of fun, interesting stuff going on in this episode. The idea of history happening all at once, the Doctor finally facing his fear of death, River's vow and the twist at the end fight a real battle to keep me satisfied, but it's still chocker with the typical Moffat-y finale problems. It feels uninspired, teasy, and takes a serious amount of time to get the ball rolling once the flashback begins. The way they handled revisiting the opening episode wasn't great, and how the bubble world worked so conveniently in the hero's favour just made the fight between the Silence and these random soldiers feel kinda hollow. I was initially quite impressed with this episode, but I think it's more to do with the final scenes wrapping up this segment of Smith's era that make it somewhat enjoyable by the end. I give The Wedding of River Song a 4 out of 10. Catching up with some alcohol after leaving the nest and not being connected. This sentence is crap. The long-awaited action sequence then got underway with the Silence zapping This is a bit of a weird one. The long-awaited action sequence then got underway with the Silence zapping The Silence zapping disposable silence. Oh my god! Even a Time Lord is apparently capable of self-loathing, and I thought this was quite interesting to have River heal his inner rage